So does Apple have a responsibility to its shareholders to pay as little in taxes as possible within the law?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Jean Pawlow of McDermott, Will and Emery think so, but Bob McIntyre of Citizens for Tax Justice argues that it's wrong for a company to behave that way. Thank you both for joining us today. And Jean, I'm going to start with you. Have you ever heard of a structure like Apple has set up overseas where they don't end up paying taxes to anybody on a lot of those profits?
So it's a good question. I don't represent Apple, but I have read about it in the paper, and we represent a lot of multinational corporations, and this structure is not that unusual. It is, I think, fair for multinational corporations to minimize their taxes, and I'm not the only one that thinks so. Learned Hand was one of the most respected justices on the Supreme Court, and he said in 1935 that everyone is allowed to arrange their affairs to minimize their taxes. And he said that no one has a patriotic duty to pay more than the legal amount of taxes. Okay. So I don't think it's particularly unusual.
Bob, isn't that true? I mean, don't we hear this over and over and over again from multinationals that why would we bring the money to the United States when we're getting double taxed and we're getting a 35% rate in the United States? So why would they? I mean, they're not stupid, right? Why would they? Why not be smart in terms of organizing their profitability in a way that pays as little as tax as possible under the law?
Well, it's the law that's the problem. You know, we have a Congress that's so craven it allows Apple and companies like it to pay almost nothing in taxes on their worldwide profits. So who do you blame? Congress, sure. But what about the companies? They're the ones that lobby these laws into place. They're the ones that persuaded the Congress not to crack down on them. So you got a lot of wrongness and a lot of reprehensibility right here.
Yeah, but the companies have been fighting for a long time. What I said at the beginning of the question was every day, I mean, a lot of times, very often, we hear multinational companies talk about repatriation not happening because of this double taxation. So the companies actually have been aggressively pushing to get this law changed.
No, they want to pay no taxes on their U.S. profits by shifting them to foreign tax havens like Ireland.
They don't want to be double taxed.
With double tax, we don't double tax. That's a silly thing to say. Well, we have a foreign tax credit that you get a credit for any taxes you pay to a foreign country when there is no possibility of double tax.
Okay,
what there is right now is a possibility of zero tax.
So why are they not bringing it to the U.S. then? Why are they not taking the money back?
They do bring it to the U.S. Where does Apple have its money? Treasury securities, the stock market here in the United States. Only for tax purposes is it sitting in these non-existent companies in Ireland.
And that's going in a circle. Exactly.
Jean, what do you advise your clients to do?
We advise our clients to comply with all laws around the globe and pay the legal amount of taxes that they should pay. But it's an overstatement to say that companies, multinational companies, aren't paying taxes in the U.S. They are. They're paying hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars in taxes in the U.S. and around the world. The fact is,
well, some of them are, but look at the ones who aren't. General Electric hasn't paid taxes in a decade. Apple pays a tax rate in the United States of about 12% because
Apple
it moves most of its profit offshore.
$6 billion in U.S. taxes.
Yeah, but their real profit in the United States was about 6 times that, which is the reason why their tax rate is so low.
The tax code was set up in the 1950s under a very complex system that assumed that most U.S. companies were doing business only in the United States. And that's not the case today. These multinationals are performing around the world.
Bob,
yes, they are doing things around the world. Some of that quite legitimate. And some of that totally illegitimate.
You seem to be suggesting that there's a more equitable tax percentage that a company should pay. What is that?
Well, I think they should pay the same rate as if you're an unincorporated business, which is in the mid-30s. And that's for small business, you know, the rate can be 28 or 35 or even 40. Apple ought to be paying the 35% regular corporate rate. They certainly can afford it. They have $102 billion that they say is offshore. And you could take the $35 billion they owe on that, and they'd still have more money than God.
All right, so in other words, you're comfortable with it. You're comfortable with the current tax law then, Bob?
No, the current tax law needs to be fixed so that companies like Apple and Microsoft and Dell and so many others are paying tax on their U.S. profits rather than moving those profits to foreign tax havens, which is what Apple is a prime example of.
Congress's duty, if Congress passes the law, the IRS and the courts enforce the laws. And if the laws need to be changed, then the laws should be changed. But in the meantime, corporations who are legally complying with their legal obligations should be allowed to do that. And in fact, I think should do that for the benefit of their shareholders. Meanwhile, they're selling their goods and services around the world, which is what we want them to be doing.
Obviously, if Apple is not breaking the law, and they may not be, then they are allowed to do it. But the law needs to be changed. And to get the law changed, we need a better Congress that will resist the lobbying of companies like Apple to keep the law the way it is. So there's fault on both sides here. And the victims are the ordinary American taxpayers.
Very good. Well, you know, right there, that's the debate we've been having all day today as we watch Tim Cook testify before that Senate panel. Thank you both for your thoughts today. Appreciate it very much.